Welcome, Julia.
Hi. Hello, hello.
Welcome to Podcast Your Destiny. This is the first episode. This is our first episode, and Julia is our first guest. I'm truly honored to be able to be your host of our conversation today. And your name is Julia, and your business is Soulwisdom. This is what you do. And so, for those of you who don't know Julia, Julia is a bridge between the seen and the unseen. Julia is a priestess. Julia is a guide through sacred spaces on this planet and to a real beyond the 3D on a very profound level. So thank you, Julia, for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I mean, this is so exciting, and I'm celebrating you for creating this podcast.
Thank you. I feel honored. And, a few days ago, you were promoting your sacred travels, and I saw your message. And of course, I was intrigued to know more. So I asked you to send me a link, right? So I received the link to your website, and one of the pages. So I love to go to the About Me section. That's what I always do on website. So I get to read more about the person. And you shared a beautiful list of books that you recommend. And one of the books that I picked was the title Transformation in the Belly of the Goddess. That spoke to me. You had also other titles that I already read, and there were more titles that I did not read. So it's like, wow, intriguing, so much to learn. So I downloaded the ebook on Audible. I started listening to it, and it spoke so deeply to me. So can you share more about that recommendation of that book and how it spoke to you and what it did for you?
Sure. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about all these things. One of the reasons, that I put out that book list as a free resource that people can go to my website and download is I feel when we are on our some people call it awakening journey or expansional journey. Like there is the spiritual calling. There is many different access points that we can have, and there is also always that analytical side, that side of bringing back ancient wisdom, and then there is the side of like really feeling and experiencing this truth in our own bodies. And so for me, I've always been a bookworm, and I love working with books, and with this a very special book by Nikki Scully that you just picked, which is in a dedication to the goddess Sekhmet. She's from the Egyptian pantheon. She's a very fierce lioness goddess with a lot of like fire in her belly. And it's more than a book. It's, to me, these kind of books is what I call like a living transmission. So it's not that you pick up the book and you read it and then you put it aside, but this book really holds codes for your own gnosis, meaning like getting to know your soul at a deeper level. And so this is profound work. So it's not something to expect just to like read on a holiday. You can, but like be prepared for deep transformation. And it's been one of the books that I read as a preparation before I embarked on my first personal pilgrimage to Egypt. And yeah, she's been always a very profound guide for me. And what I feel at especially this time, where we are like on the planet, the political situation, the society, like everything, we see that there is so much chaos, and she holds these archetypal energies. She's the goddess of war, but she is also not this bloodlusty figure that comes in to like literally like tear down walls. It's more that everything that is not in alignment and that is not built in true integrity, this is what needs to be destroyed in order and like literally set on fire, so that from these burning grounds and the ashes, the phoenix can rise again.
Yes.
And this is when you start working with her, like this is what she does to you. And to me, there was a whole, we can maybe go into that further down the conversation. That might be a little bit too much to go into the first question, but she's a very strong energy to work with.
Yes, 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 yes. So thank you for going deeper into that. And I know it's like a boom of a question.
Yeah. I love that.
Me too. Let's dive straight into. So you've been visiting Egypt before?
Yes.
Personally, and with like as a retreat is not a word. Like what? How do you pilgrimage?
It's
Yes,
a pilgrimage.
yeah. So you have been offering that to your people as well, or is it? Yes, I want to know more about that.
Yeah, thank you. So I have always been called to Egypt, and it's literally like I can think of since back into my childhood. And for those of you who are listening or watching this, maybe you might have the stirring of some sort of civilization or culture or country, or just like a type of landscape that you feel really drawn to. And for my husband, for example, it's islands, like it's white sandy beach and turquoise water. Like this is him. That's more of the Lemurian type. To me, I call myself more of the Atlantean type, which is more like ancient temples and structures and pyramids.
Yes.
And this is I've literally like felt this in my body as a calling to read every book about it, to just like whenever we went to a museum, I would be interested and fascinated into digging deeper and finding more out about that. But at that time, I didn't, of course, also understand that, you know, there is more to the history, to the archaeology, that it's literally energetic vibrations in your cells that are calling out and saying, hey, here is codes for you that you need to retrieve.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I forgot about that during my teenage years and young adolescent, until the point where I saw that a former mentor now, or two of them actually posted about this Egypt pilgrimage. It was called an Egypt Priestess pilgrimage. And, you know, when you have this experience in your body and you're like, okay, I gotta be there. Like, it doesn't make sense. There's no logical explanation for that. It was in the midst of COVID. But I knew I had to be there. And there was like nothing that would bring me away from that trip. Although like my family and everybody kind of like tried to talk me out of it for several reasons. And so I went with Sarah Naya Soleil and Achintya Devi back then. And it was about 3 weeks, like journeying the temples with a very intentional way of connecting energetically to all these ancient codings, to the archetypes, to all this, you know, the seen and the unseen, as you named it in your introduction. And that's when, yeah, a lot of things clicked in place for me. That's when I understood a deeper fractal of my soul, of the incarnations that I've had in Egypt and other places as well. And it's just this very, very profound knowing that you are more than Julia. Like I am more than Julia. Yes, I'm Julia right now and I have a mission, but I've also been I've had other incarnations, and there is like a red thread throughout this, which for me is the calling to the priestess path, like to be in service. And so I've had 2 experiences where I went with a group of women. And then I've been to Egypt like for leisure another couple of times. And this year in December, I am leading my first group to a couple of places. And yeah, I'm very excited about that.
I feel the energy outburst when you start talking about it.
Yeah, can't help it.
It's like opening a treasure, then
it's a portal.
I feel it. So it's beautiful how you use the words a fractal of my soul, because once I heard that every single one of us is a fractal of consciousness, is a fractal of this energy that we call super consciousness. So you using it, it's like, yeah, of course, this is the deeper reconnection that you have when you visit those places, that it resonates so hard with the truth inside of you, just like you said, that you just have this deeper knowing, like, okay, nothing else matters more than this right now, and then going deep into that. So thank you for sharing that. So when you were talking about you had experiences of previous lives, how clearly was that to you before in your life? Had you always had this feeling? Was it a conscious knowing? What was your access to that? I'm very curious.
Yeah, that's a great question. Okay, let me feel into this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I believe, and it's like looking back on my life and my experience, but it's also what I see when people come to me and ask for like Akashic Records readings or Magdalene Reiki sessions. A lot of the work that I do, and I guess it's kind of like I am being used by Source as a portal for that, is where people get access to previous lifetimes, whether this was on Earth or in other star constellations, to activate or unlock, or I love to use the word remember within themselves, because a lot of us, it's in us. Like, it's kind of like this dormant DNA that scientists even have discovered, and they have, what is the word for it, kind of like spank DNA, or, you know, something like they don't know what it's for, so they put it aside. I strongly believe, and like in my channelings, what was shown to me, that this is actually just the part that lies dormant. But when you, like through different practices, elevate your consciousness to the level where these codings crack open, and it's like this infusion of, oh, remember, like, this is why you had certain fears, this is why you had certain affinities or sympathies with or against things or people. And then when you go deeper, it's this discovery of, oh, okay, it's because this and this happened.
Yeah.
And what I see people doing is discovering these things and then kind of like using it as an explanation, you know, especially like I work a lot with females, so I'm going into the feminine consciousness, like where we speak about these witch wounds, the sisterhood wounds, you know, which like were very real because, and not only for females, by the way, when you hold certain knowledge, that was also dangerous because it was powerful, and that's where all the prosecution came from. But it's not to say right now, oh, I remember, yes, and I'm carrying this wound because I was burned, and yes, and like, again, there is something bigger than that. So it's not an excuse for your behavior in this lifetime, but how can you actually clear this, and how can you use this knowledge and this remembrance to unlock your greater purpose, which to me feels very much like coming out of the separation and into this unity again.
Yeah. So it's literally using that as a catalyst to be your true self in a deeper stage, in a proceeding of what you have been doing before then.
Totally. Yeah. How's that for you? I'm curious.
Yes. So when it comes to connection to older cultures, previously I was having that with Mexico, and then it moved from Mexico to like a first touching of Egypt, and then it moved to India. And then because these countries are at the same border on the globe.
Yes.
And to me, that was a very profound realization, because I noticed a lot of similarities between Mexico and India. A lot. I was just like, this is no coincidence. So it spoke to me very deeply, and I was very grateful to be able to see the resemblance in just another expression. And also when I started reading the Bhagavad Gita, and it's a scripture of 5,000 years old. So when I was listening to it, because it was, of course, a translation, several translations put together, so I could actually step into it with some flow and understand it. And to me, that was such a perfect description of how our mind works, how consciousness works, how we as human work, or we are being conditioned. And then, like you said, you have to remember who you are. You have to wake up. It's like you wake up from this amnesia, and then you're just like, oh, of course. And then you step into this deeper wisdom and you operate from there. And of course, the people who know you, they don't understand at all, because what happened to you is just like you woke up, and then all of a sudden you step into another energy frequency. So everything that resonated with you then is just not able to connect with you anymore. So that was for me very profound before. And then now, since a while, so I had this touch of Egypt before, also around 21. I was feeling this deeper resonance, and I was not knowing where it came from. And all of a sudden that became extremely apparent to me over the past 6 weeks again. And then, so when I started to, so you have to, right? So I picked just one book out of your list. And there it happened, right? The universe always finds you. So, okay, good. Instead of Mexico and India, let's go to Egypt, What a coincidence. Or not. So, of course, I know that we're always guided, we're always protected. And so I'm very grateful to feel that here as well. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's your soul, stirring you. I always say, the universe literally like conspires in the most peculiar ways to like throw all the, excuse my language, like shit at you until you finally get it. It's like, oh, okay.
Yes.
I understood now.
Yes.
And like once you are in that current and the frequency that you mentioned, and you know a little bit more about how to communicate and how life actually works outside the parameters that we were taught how it works, and you understand and you can operate from that paradigm, it's a lot easier.
Yes. I love it that you use the word paradigm, because it's my work, or the guidance that I do with my people is around paradigms, and to shift the paradigms, and to literally how to flow with all the conditioning and become the observer, and how to use the energy that you are, right? So you said I work with females, so to speak. I would love to ask you a question about female energy, and because of course you referring to the systems, to what is told, that what we are told how things work. Like systematically, it is set up by man for man. So when we step into
White
man. White man, indeed, yes. When we step into it as women, thinking like, we have to adjust to that and see how we can use the more masculine energy, we apply it, and then we will be successful. For women, it's literally taking down your feminine force on the long term. So for me, it was very important to understand, I can be feminine into the masculine system as well. So I see you're a guide for feminine energy. And how was that realization for you, that you could own your femininity in what you do, in who you are, in everything? Because before you were working in the corporate world, and then you decided at some point, okay, let's do this. This is strong and awful. What was your realization, or how did you move with it?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that question. And it's exactly as you say. I feel a lot of us are, especially like working in a corporate environment, and even, from early on as a child, like literally being pressed into this system, into this scheme. And it is so deeply ingrained in all of us that to a point where we don't even realize.
Yeah.
And we just also unconsciously pass it on to the next generation. And this is, I'm not saying this to judge, I'm just saying this to raise awareness also, because like even I and you and like everybody, we're not free. Like I fall back into forgetfulness all the time. And the fun thing kind of like was that, for a very long time, I was super successful in my job. So
in the corporate world. Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. But also there was a point where I really fell sick. And that lasted over many, many years. And it was to a point where I was literally like chronically ill. I was not physically well. I ended up in hospital several times. And this is not something that I speak about very often. So in fact, I'm not sure if I have ever spoken about it publicly. So
okay, thank you for the trust.
It's another first on your first episode. But anyways, and I was like, I ended up in hospital several times. I had to cancel and like early cancel several holidays because I was not feeling well. And nobody, like literally nobody in the medical system could help me. And everybody said like, oh, you're fine, like nothing's wrong with you. And there was a point where I was so miserable, like physically, emotionally, everything. I wasn't happy with my job, where I decided, like I came into this inner discernment and I was like, okay, if you don't tell me what's wrong, I'm going to find out myself. And that's when, like coming back to these coincidences, synchronicities, as soon as you put yourself into alignment with your truth and you're like, okay, something is wrong. Like, I'm going to find out what that is. The universe brings people your way and brings situations your way where it's these triggers for remembrance, these triggers for awakening. And so I started to so for me, it really started with the physical journey, and it wasn't something, it wasn't something that was fast. Like, honestly, it went over at least 5 years. And so with the physical and like putting my body back into a state of cohesiveness with how I felt, and at the same time also working with my emotions, like learning that there is a way to get rid of or to process emotions, because everything has a vibration, right? And it's the vibration that manifests in your body. And so when you keep yourself in fear, when you keep yourself in doubt or shame, it's like you literally keep yourself in these lower vibrational states that ultimately end up in some sort of diseases or being unwell. So that was a bit of the starting point, and that's then when I discovered that I could connect a lot deeper with my physical cycle over or beyond what was taught. And I feel also a lot of this is, now there are so many great resources out there. Like when I was at that point, I didn't have anywhere to go, right? There was nothing out there. Like all you would get, even from your genealogist, was not a cycle mapping, but it wasn't even, it was a linear thing, And for me, like it was such a big aha when somebody handed me this sheet, and it was this cycle, a circle, and I was like tracking the cycle, and then every month I could like overlay them. I was like, oh, this is what happened on this day, and this is what happened in the next cycle. Oh, look. And so I could see these patterns. And so this is kind of like how it started. And then, when I found, the priestess path for me, I started to really dive into all of these goddesses and their mythology and their stories. But what they ultimately taught me is that these archetypes all live within us. And this is not only true for the feminine, because we hold both, right? We hold the feminine and the masculine, and ultimately it has to be this balance. Because when we are too much in our flow and there's no structure at all, like I think you know what I'm talking about, we can get totally lost. And so I think it's a lot. It's a lot about like unlearning and relearning, which is all really about the body, like letting your body become the biggest teacher for you and feel with your entire system. Is this what am I supposed to be doing now? Because very often we like bounce against these limitations because we are asked to like go. And then we are in a phase of our cycle, or just because we feel like, excuse my language again, like a piece of shit. And I just can't. And there was days where I couldn't function. And but that's the truth. But then once you surrender into, it's okay. It's okay. And then there's another time for go time, because this is also when you look outside, the seasons, like nature, everything. Nothing is linear, and everything will come back to you. You will always get as many chances as you need.
There's always doors opening. Every time again when we say we're ready, or we don't even know we're ready, and subconsciously we are entering this new stage, even though we don't know it at all, that big shifts are happening. So I resonate a lot with the fact that you say embodiment. So because that was for me the most difficult piece as a puzzle to fit in. So earlier on, I knew about the power of the mind. There was always this connection to the soul. You know that there's this powerhouse in your heart, so to speak. Yet then the wisdom of the body. How do you get to understand that? To me, that was the chunk that took the longest, so to speak, because perhaps many people that listen to this also know that their bodies showing signs they cannot translate. How do you learn to listen? So you had to do that because you had to do that yourself, because you were not receiving answers. Okay. And then also a big part that was interesting for me is that when you mentally don't feel well, it is shown on the physical level. And what medicine is doing is treating symptoms. So to listening to these messages of the body, and that's the first realization. The second realization is, okay, thoughts, feelings, that level, that chapter. How do you let go of emotions that are not beneficial for you anymore? And to me, that was the biggest chunk to learn. And on a daily basis to connect with that. So for you yourself, probably you also had to learn, okay, what am I feeling? What are my emotions? What are my needs? Can you share a bit more about that? How that was going for you?
Yeah, sure. Sure. That's a good one. Because that was confusing me for a long time of my life.
I totally am guilty of the same thing, you know.
And again, I feel a lot of this knowing like comes retrospectively by looking at your life in sequential patterns again, in a way. And I now understand that when, like, very early on, even as a child, and this is not only true for me, I mean, honestly, this is true for every child, because there is quite a phase that when we like land as a soul and we incarnate, and we are, the children are so pure. And even before like going to kindergarten or everything, they are the closest still to these subtle realms, to these other realms, because this is where they just came from. So they, I mean, all the dragons, the unicorns, I mean, this is not fluffy woo things. Like they see them and they feel them and they talk to them. And we have just forgotten in a way that these beings actually exist. And so for me, when I was a child, I would always feel the emotions, the energy of everybody and everything. But of course, I didn't know that. And I didn't have anybody to tell me what was going on and how to actually even discern between feelings that were my own and that weren't. And I was internalizing all of, you know, and again, like this is no judgment, but that's just what happened, that I would internalize all of the emotions and primarily also negative feelings that my parents had, that like people in my close environment had, because they were operating from a different, subconscious level. And that's what you take, or that's what I took on as a child. And so I would like say something or reflect something, but then, you know, people in my immediate environment didn't have that consciousness. And so they would always say, oh, no, it's not like this, it's that, or it's that. And that got me totally confused. And to a point where literally when I was a teenager, like I had no idea about, I didn't even have a trust in my body, because I felt something, but everybody around me was telling me, no, it's not true. Like it's this or that. So I was there completely lost, like, okay, well, I'm feeling this, but it can't be this. Maybe it's that, or maybe it's this. I don't know. And that's also, you know, where the people pleasing comes in, and like all of these things, because you try to go with what people tell you what should be or could be right. And which is totally against like your own feeling and your own intuition. It sounds familiar.
It sounds extremely familiar.
So as you say, like it's a huge part to kind of like unlearn and come into that trust that what your body, what your intuition is telling you is actually true. And it's just, so that is the one thing, like it is true. And that this is the way for you to go with, versus your mother, your father, your teacher, your friend, your partner, whoever, your child might have a completely different path. And that's why also it is always nice to give recommendations and to say, look, I did this, but it might not even be true, or it might not be helpful for them, because their soul has a completely different mission or path to fulfill.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a huge piece.
Yeah, it's a huge piece, that trust.
Yeah.
Learning how to trust.
Yeah.
I can, of course, you know, tell from my experience, that's also something that I needed to learn, as it is literally getting to understand your own protection mechanisms, who will run over your own truth.
Yes.
Every time again, every day again. Like being in an environment, you have family, you have friends, you have a partner, you have children, you have colleagues. Everything that you do, it's how do you for yourself stay centered with the truth inside of you? How do you create this deeper connection or build the trust on a daily basis with yourself? I'm very curious to hear about that.
You mean for me, how that plays out for
yourself,
me?
Yeah. What do you do to ground, to reconnect, to serve yourself before you start serving other people?
Yeah, well, it's a great question, because, you know, especially I feel for females, or mothers, we have this loving, nurturing energy, like we want to care about others. And I'm not saying that men don't do that, but again, like coming from this energetic perspective, there is this trait of like really wanting to care for others, but then doing that to an extent where you are completely depleted. And that in our society, I also sometimes feel, you know, it is like people have to say that they are giving more than they are actually receiving. So it's not perceived selfish or so, which, yeah, no, but
I totally understand what you're
it's true.
saying.
But
Yeah.
in turn, it's the complete opposite. And boundaries is always perceived as something very bad or yeah, protection, where in fact it's one of the most normal things and one of the best things that you can gift to yourself on a daily basis to stay in that inner center. And I mean, we just have to, you know, look outside. Like there is the news, there is so many distractions that we can have that put us out of our center. And if I don't do my daily work, like routine in the morning, I totally feel that, like I'm all over the place. And I don't read the news.
Yeah. To me, it's totally the same. Yes. Yeah.
So, I mean, of course, I did have great teachers, and there is, you know, I feel there is no access point. There's not one access point. So that's why I'm saying I can share my own experience. But then again, it comes back to what resonates with you.
Yeah.
So another thing, like everything that you hear, everything that is being thrown at you, everything that you are being taught, like let it run through your own compass in your body, and you will feel if there is an inner yes or if there's an inner no. And that's like the discernment. Okay, I'm keeping it. No, like this, like return to sender. And of course, there is things like meditation. There's things like breath work or embodiment or like a lot of cool things that you can do. And it's a lot about finding what resonates with you. And so for me, I like my daily practice incorporates meditation. I'm using a lot of crystals. So I work with crystal grids. I lay out a Merkaba grid with clear quartz and amethyst. And I sit in that center. I also work a lot with pyramids and I literally like meditate in that shape, or I invoke for myself sacred geometry, which for me is a great protection. That I work with. And I just want to bring up because I actually do have a very I love it. That's why I always also want to speak about it. I have this pulled together this, it's a free program. It's called 22 Days of Mastering Your Creatrix Powers. And it's literally everything and anything that I've ever learned about my practices, and that has really, really helped me. Because for there's this thing about having a daily practice, but then, you know, what I'm also realizing is that a lot of people come to me and they're like, they consider themselves a spiritual person or a spiritual woman, and there is these other hats. And so the spiritual one, the spiritual identity only comes out when they have these 10 minutes to meditate, or like when they go to maybe a yoga class, or just like something where the mind also associates, oh, like this is spiritual. Like, okay, now I'm the spiritual one. Whereas I come to understand, and that was a big part, sorry, I'm kind of like, again, like all over the place, but where I realized that when I was in corporate, it is really time to let this spirit, because we are all spiritual beings having a human experience, right?
Always.
So let that be the leader of my life and not hide this other side. And when I allowed that, and again, it's like this inner decision, I'm no longer hiding. It was so beautiful to see how literally the fabric of my life changed, and how now I can come from this conscious perspective in everything that I do. And sometimes I call that like living life as a ceremony. And that doesn't mean that I'm all flowers and stuff, but it's like, how can you use your water to program? How do you like engage with food? How do you create a safe space just in the way how the two of us are connecting. So when we started in the little meditation, for example, I cast a circle, and it's just like these little things to know how to work and direct and channel energy, which makes a big difference.
Yes, I understand. And I also experienced that. Thank you for going deeper into that, and also for explaining. I saw the invitation to the 20-day program, or 20-day.
It's free, by the way. It's called 22 Days of Mastering Your Creatrix Powers.
Okay. Yeah, so I will definitely add this link so people can click on it and can join you in there.
Sure. Yeah. Well, if you do it, let me know how it resonates. Let me know what your favorite practice is. I'm always curious to hear.
Yes. So it's thank you. It's literally about receiving, allowing yourself to receive, and it starts with the most small thing is how well are you able to receive a compliment, and then really to understand, okay, how much am I blocking myself for my health, for my wealth, for my relationships, for my job, for my purpose, for anything that I do. So that has been, of course, a profound guidance for me over the last year. Actually, it was very, very clear. How do I allow myself to receive? So thank you for sharing about that.
You have beautiful earrings,
Thank
by the
you.
way. They sit you very well.
Thank you. And there's also another aspect that I really love to step into, about what you shared on your website. And you said, and now I have to read it because it was so, yes. I was like, oh, wow, this is so inspiring. It's about your spiritual embodiments. Okay, so you said on your website, you identify as a code carrier of Sophia consciousness, a woman ceremonialist, a Magdalene Rose Priestess, and then a Steward of Gaia. And to me, it was like, wow, this is very specific. So, can you share more about that, please?
Okay. Where do we start? Where to end? I mean, first of all, I want to say, it's kind of like funny to hear that reflecting back. And of course, I know that it's on my website. And I think the most devastating things to do is creating a bio for your website and have to give yourself tags. I'm not a big fan of that, honestly.
Yeah, I understand.
Because yes, I might identify as all of that, and I might identify as a lot more.
Yeah.
And that's also an invitation that I want to, speak to everybody who's listening or watching to this. Like, it's always nice to know what you want to stand for. And again, especially when we are on this path of spiritual expansion, spiritual ego is a huge thing.
I know. You see it daily. It is. It absolutely is.
But anyways, so and the funny thing is, I mean, literally one of the first things that I came to remember when I started this path was that I was identifying with the word priestess, and I saw somebody put a training out there, and I had no idea what a priestess was. And like my mother tongue is German, and that, but also to everybody, out there, like the work that I do is solely in English. And I even struggle to tell people what I do in my mother tongue. And I feel this is partially true because a lot of the terms that I use have this religious connotation but also it's the language itself that has a complete different frequency that for me personally is not a match. So I could never say to anybody in German, like, I'm a priestess, and they will go like, huh? So what I mean by that is over the studies and the trainings, and again, like also the embodied remembrance when I went on the trips, is that the priests and priestesses, similar to druids, they were like these these lineage keepers, these code carriers of consciousness for a society. And you can literally like go back in Greek, Egyptian, and of course, like also all the ancient like Mayan traditions everywhere, even in India, like there's different traditions where you find that it was the temple keepers in a way, and that's literally how I see it, like they were tending to the fire, and you can see the temple is your own body as well, and the fire is the life force, it's your connection to source. And so allowing everybody and anybody to recognize the light within themselves. And then, of course, there was also a big distortion where there was these power struggles, especially used with religious systems, where it is only the priest or the priestess that, or it's only through them that someone can access the codings. And this is not true. Like, it's all within yourself. And my role as a priestess is to enable and to empower you to remember, like to give you the tools so you remember yourself, that you have this innate connection to source because you are source.
Yeah.
And another part, it's is very much bringing out, you know, these what I call oracular powers or oracular structures. So like really seeing beyond the realms. And this is something that shows up for everyone differently. Like for some it might be very visual, for some it might be more like that they feel something in their body that is true or not. And it's not fortune telling. It's more like really working with these different dimensions, different beings, to come more and more into this cohesive field and allow us to remember that there is a lot more that we cannot see, that we weren't taught, that maybe was also deliberately hidden from us.
Absolutely.
Because it's not only that knowledge is power, it's also that once you are tapped into this frequency and you like crack yourselves open to hold these codes within you, you are spoken.
Yes.
And then there's this other thread that I want to bring in with the dragons and the Magdalenes, that last year in the summer, I was on a personal pilgrimage in France. And I was at this beautiful cathedral that was dedicated to Mary Magdalene. And I had an amethyst dragon skull with me, which I had bought at the time at the Kilby. Yeah, of all places. Yeah, indeed. And I had no idea, I just wanted to come with me. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And it was at that place where it got unlocked, and I was shown in a meditation that, you know, there is what I call the Magdalene consciousness and the dragon consciousness. And when you look at both of these beings or like lineages of beings, like the dragons, mostly what we are being told about dragons, apart from, let's say, the kids' stories, is that dragons are evil. Like it was the virgin that needed to be protected and saved from this evil dragon. And in fact, the contrary is the thing. There's a lot of distortions in these stories. And when we go back, like even to the creation myth of the earth, we can see that dragons are involved. And this is still very present in astronomy, astrology, because we have the dragon nodes. So all of that, kind of like a little disclaimer also, like when you want to find out what is the truth, like read myths, read legends.
Yeah.
And so what I was shown was that there's this distortion about the dragons, but what the dragons actually are is that they are primordial guardians of life force and of the earth and the feminine consciousness. And the Magdalenes, like Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary and all of them, Magdalene is a title. So it was a priestess title that they were actually these like cosmic priestesses with very, very profound, high advanced knowledge from the Pleiades, maybe even from other star nations, that were sent to Earth to carry out one of the biggest plays mankind ever encountered, but also to help humanity remember what they are and who they are. And again, like there was a lot of distortions over time, not only through religion, what happened to the females as such in Christianity, for example, but also, how the feminine is treated. And so one of the missions that, like, specifically for me that I was shown is that I am supposed to go to these places on earth, because that's also, like, we have with the temples, with the cathedrals, we have these anchor points where this consciousness is like literally stored in the earth. And it's the time now to bring this up again and to like kind of like free these codings so the right people can access and can step into the service to bring them forward. And there's this relinking that needs to happen between the dragon nodes and the Magdalene nodes. And a lot of the work that I do and the sacred travels that I'm leading are, I might speak about it, and some I might not so prominently speak about it, but it always like ties back to this.
Okay. Wow, thank you.
That is in a nutshell.
Because I wanted to tie back actually to the travel.
Yeah.
Because how did you understand, or what was the thing in the experience in your journey when you know, okay, these locations are connected to high access of consciousness. And because it's not only the pyramids and temples, there's also way more stored in nature.
Yeah.
You very often also go to mountains. Is that true? And I would love to talk more about that. How you got connected to that? Was it as a child? Was it on your own journeys? How did that come to you actually?
Yeah, thank you.
That wisdom.
And I guess I want to start by saying, you know, whenever you have a calling or you have like a real strong sense of just being home in a certain landscape or by a certain spot, it might even be in your backyard or like close to where you live, then everywhere you go, there is an energy exchange with the place, right? Yeah. And I also strongly believe that the places where we are being born and where we die and where we have like pivotal experiences in our lives, that this is kind of like an orchestration of a bigger map. Yeah. And it's, I think, again, it's like both. For me, a lot of the things like happen through downloads, but also like through knowledge. And I do have a very analytical side. So I read a lot, like I listen to a lot of podcasts or audiobooks, but then it's also this layer of actually going to the sites and experiencing what it's like for yourself. Yeah. And it's, so thank you for bringing that up, because ultimately everything is in nature and everything is in the earth. It's actually what is in the earth or comes through the waters, the mountains, like minerals, the stones, the rock, that is and also these are conduits of energy, right? So water is a conduit of energy. A lot of the mountains have like granite or these like limestone structures. I'm not, like, from a science point, I couldn't tell you, but it's just like, a little bit from what I learned and what I feel when I'm in these places. It's like literally a carrier of information. And especially for me, stones or stone circles, it's like you enter a library, an etheric like repository of information. And when you attune yourself to the frequency without knowing what this place was for or what it was not for, like, again, like just feeling what you feel and what like this place is telling you, what the trees are telling you, what the mountains are telling you. And then there is the structures, as you said, with the temples, the cathedrals, that most of the time they were actually built deliberately on these power spots that the earth in itself holds, because the ancients knew about it.
Thank you for sharing about that. I didn't know that at all.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, yeah,
That's powerful.
That's a huge one. I mean, you may have heard about these ley lines or song lines. The Aborigines call them song lines.
Okay.
In China, they are called dragon lines.
Okay.
Here's the dragon again.
Yes, of course.
So, ley lines, it's kind of like this, you know, where on WhatsApp or like on your phone, you have this emoji with where you can just see the meridians of the earth.
Yeah.
This is what it is.
Okay.
So it's these, like we have meridians in our bodies.
Yeah.
The earth has a grid.
Yeah.
A grid where there is energy currents running.
Yeah.
And just as you mentioned before, the similarities that you notice, you know, with the countries being on this belt.
Yeah.
Like certain even the longitude and latitude of, although they were also altered at some point, but anyways, like all of these sites, the sacred sites, the stone circles, the pyramids, they are all built on certain frequency and energy lines along the earth. And then it doesn't necessarily connect to your question, but I'm just like feeling called to go there because similar also to the chakras that we hold in our bodies, like the earth has chakras.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, for example, Giza with the pyramids, it's the throat chakra. And when you are there, you will understand why. Like when you go to that place, it literally works a lot with your throat, with like connecting you and the voicing your truth. And also at the same time, the sacral, because they're very connected. And so it's just paying attention to how your environment, how you react or interact with your environment. Is it something that opens you up? Is it something where you feel like, oh no? And so it's these types coming together. And so a lot of these times the structures, the cathedrals, they were first of all deliberately built on these vortices. And then also they were, if you look at the ancient structures, I mean, look at the magnificent architecture. It's like amazing. And a lot of the masons and the people who were involved to build these structures, they had all these ancient knowledge. Like there was no way that, you know, all of the professions that we have nowadays, they have separated themselves from that source consciousness, but back then it was still alive.
Yeah.
And this is what's reflected in the cathedrals and the stone circles. I mean, it's literally a map of astronomy, astrology, of happenings, of energy currents running. And so that's also why I feel it's hard to go into a church, like an ancient church or a cathedral, and not feel humble and like not feel this otherworldly presence.
Yes, yes. Thank you for sharing that. I'm a bit baffled because I am raised as a, you could say, Catholist.
Yeah.
Then I was very practicing at the age of 11 and 12 because we had to do this formation.
Yes.
And then at some point to me, the building of a church and the geometry and what the message it brings, or just the beauty of the architecture with all the lead windows, like all the colors, the energy carried in there. I thought that was for me the connection to Christianity, like bring people together, like have this profound something. And I didn't connect it with the religion.
Yeah.
And to me, even when I was together with my ex-husband, we wanted to marry. And then the interest was, let's marry in a church, even though we were not practicing at all.
Yes.
So when I got the feedback like, hey, if you marry in a church, always your names will be registered as a Christian wedding. I know, okay, I'm not going to do that. Just because I didn't want that to be connected, my marriage to religion, because of the profound union that you set up by marrying.
Yeah.
like connected to the person. So
Yeah.
this for me is a very profound explanation why I felt that energy and why this to me was so important, even though the religion is not important to me at all.
Yes.
So thank you
Of
for
course.
bringing that to my experience, to my insights.
And
Yeah.
you know, there is and you can cut that out if you don't want to have that on there, but there is a very cool episode on my podcast where I had a guy come and he does temple cymatics. So he showcases how the energy flows and explains all these different structures. And so it's very, very cool. And also to actually see that, how what you just explained, the windows and, you know, the arches and like even the pillars and how the carvings on the columns are, it's insane.
I know. Do you know that I have a degree as an architect?
You're right.
Yes. So to me, it's like, to me, it's like, of course, I totally understand. Because geometry for me is also very profound.
Yeah.
Very strong. And, you know, right now, if you would ask me, I would say like, I don't know where that comes from, you know. So
but you do.
I do know.
You do.
I do know. So the energy that comes with it is also for me in art. And the expression that is another language than words. All of that. So I guess that's also what you experience when you're traveling. There's this language that you tap into, that you translate, and that you bring people together for that experience. Is it that you also get to understand from the work that you do you feel like you are like this channel, like it's open the whole time, or is it that you are you because you feel that you have this, the spiritual aspect of you is so apparent that it's just like an open valve the whole time? How does that function for you? How do you feel that, this is for you?
I think it's both. And of course, also this came over time, like coming back also to the trust. And, you know, it was funny when we were preparing and setting up the space, and I said to you that, well, I've read through the questions that you sent me up front, but I didn't want to prepare an answer. And my previous self probably would have like very specifically noted down like, oh, this is what I want to mention here, and have like these bullet points and, oh, did I cover everything? Versus now, I am a lot more, as you say, like coming as this open channel, because I also trust that whatever needs to be spoken in the container and whatever like needs to be in this episode is what sparks a remembrance in you that are listening, or sparks a quality that you can access when you're tapping into this yourself. Or maybe there is a place that you visit a couple of weeks after listening to this, and then all of a sudden there's these things clicking in place, because our growth, especially the spiritual growth, is not linear. And like it took me, you know, some things for me actually are still integrating from the previous Egypt trip that I had like 2 years back. And some things drop and I'm like, oh, this is what it was. I get it now. But then when you're in the moment and you're so like trying to get it, or the mind tries to get it right, you're not in tune with the flow. So also coming back to like how we create this openness and the feminine flow. And that's why I really approach it as this clear vessel. But then of course, you know, I have a different like imprint as Julia, as you have as Sige. So everybody brings their own traits to it. And that's also why we attract different people, I feel. And that's why also an important piece that I just want to share, you know, I don't see anybody who is doing similar things than I as a competitor, because again, like it's this what we spoke about before, more of like this, is there a linear paradigm, or is there something that is ending, or is it like just limitless resources? And we are like all working together in some way or another. And it's really about like the support also, and this network, because everybody, like even you who are listening to this and who are watching this, you have a piece of the puzzle as well. And by sharing that with somebody else in your community, that might exactly spark this light, and then it's kind of like this chain reaction, right?
Yeah, it's literally like the light gets, multiplied by sharing.
Yes.
That's how it's.
Yeah. And so, a lot of times I would say that that I do half channel maybe. Dreaming is also a big one for me. Like in dream space, I'm processing so many things. And so not always, but whenever I can, like right after waking up, I journal. And sometimes I deliberately like put myself in a channeled state. And sometimes it's kind of funny because, it's also part of my creative process, especially now that I'm leading the trips. I work a lot with the sacred guardians of the land. So for Egypt, for example, I do a lot of work with the Sphinx, or with the pyramids, obviously, with other places that I go. So what I'll do as part of my process is I put myself in a meditative state with this structure or being, and then I just channel, and that's where I also got a lot of the information of what is the places that we need to visit, what's happening there, what is not happening there. And you can prepare that. And then of course then there's the actual part of being there and like responding to whatever happens on site.
And also being there and receiving what you are receiving in that moment, what you're taking with you, what you unpack later. And just like you said, it's profound that you refer to it that even 2 years after a travel, that there's still things to unwrap, not to unwrap, like to say unconsciously you're unwrapping it the whole time, or you received it already, or it's just like it falls into place, like it's an understanding, like this, it's integrated in yourself.
Yes,
that's
what
it
is.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that's so profound, because every time you travel, you come back as a different person.
Tell me about it. Well, tell my husband about it. He's like, oh no, she's going again. Who's going to come back?
It's so profound, That's why when I started to prioritize myself, I was literally into traveling, because I got so much deep answers from me being just with me, and spending that. Just many of the people listening to this, they also have to or came to an understanding like, hey, I need to prioritize myself. Instead of putting myself last, family, for children, for husband, for work, for everything. So once you start prioritizing yourself and you start to understand how profound the experience with yourself is when you travel, when you allow yourself to go to a location and experiencing it instead of being a consumer, that's something else then again.
Yes.
And taking that with you and literally understanding, okay, this new version of you every time again, this reinventing of yourself, this bringing it into your business. And then the most beautiful part to me is literally the aspect that you shared about as well, right? This alignment. How do I keep aligned with myself? Because you're constantly evolving. You're constantly stepping into the new. You're grounding yourself. You have to learn skills. And what I tell to my people is 20% skills and 80% mindset, and not the other way around as we are taught. So you lose yourself in the skills, or you think I have to. Sometimes you just really need to support you having skills. Like you want to be a public speaker, you have to learn how to do public speaking. Before doing this podcast, I was like, I need to have some questions. So I prepare myself, even though I know this flow is the most important thing to answer. So how do you do that for yourself, that reconnecting every time again, so to speak, on a daily basis, of that alignment? Yes, for me, not for me. Yes, for me, not for me, with your evolvement.
Yeah, it's a great question. And no, I'm going to rephrase that. It's a great inquiry.
Yeah.
Because I also learned that language is a big one. So question is more of like, it's the quest I'm on, which is I'm going outward, and inquiry is like inside.
Thank
So
you.
taking that.
Wow, thank you. I'm so grateful that you shared this. This is beautiful.
So what do I want to share about that, that we haven't already shared? I mean, first of all, I guess what a lot of people don't realize, and including myself, especially in the beginning, is that we don't give ourselves enough times for integration. So, like, again, coming back to this, when you are a spiritual seeker, you seek, like, you go outward and, oh, there's this, and maybe there's that course, and maybe there's that travel, and this and that, and oh, maybe I should do this. So what you maybe refer to as the skills, but then you don't allow yourself time to actually sit with it and let it work with you and through you. And so it might not be your favorite answer, but like sitting with yourself in stillness, no distraction, no TV, no nothing, like going out into nature, just observing, meditating or journaling, like all of these very quiet inward, maybe even painting, maybe even some artistic expression that you don't do because you want this to see anybody. You just do it for yourself. So some sort where you feel that you can, that it helps you to become, to come and to fully drop, like, from that space into that space, so that it becomes a living reality. And that is oftentimes also what I see with, what I see happening is that, when we are on this spiritual journey, and you mentioned it briefly in the beginning, sometimes it can also lead to friction, or it can lead to loneliness, because we feel that we have evolved versus others haven't. And with this mindset, like, we are subconsciously creating a separation, because we see ourselves as here and much more conscious and much more evolved, and everybody else around us not. And it's a hard one, because also, of course, our desires change, but that's just something that I want to address, to also, like, in your new programming, become aware of subconscious programming, like new subconscious programming. And then again, it's, everything that really helps you to come into the body. And for me, for a long time, that was tapping, where you literally, like, you just go and tap. You can do that with chakras, you can do that with parts of your body. And I would sit, especially after an Egypt trip, I would sit for 4 weeks every night before I would go to bed, and I would literally tap things in or out of my body. And it might seem a little weird for somebody, but it actually does help.
It helps without any without doubt. It helps that embodiment that you just said, like, allowing things to land and to literally experiencing it in your body with the wisdom of your body, and then translating it into this other version of yourself with this more embodied practice. I feel that's also the journey every day again.
Music can be a good one too.
Yeah.
It is every day in you. Totally agree.
the sun, nature, this type of air, just going somewhere, just sitting, the aspect of just sitting with yourself. I know for many people it can be challenging. And then once you step into doing so, the peace you experience and the clarity that you have is such a beautiful confirmation of the beings that we are.
Well, it's true. And, if you imagine that even when you're driving to work, like most people, and again, like including myself, turn on a podcast or like listen to a masterclass or whatever, like we are constantly consuming in a way, which doesn't allow our minds and our bodies to really absorb the information at a deeper level. And then when we come into these still points throughout the day, that's when things land. And I know it can be quite hard, especially like, again, when you are also work-wise in an environment where you feel like you have to be on spot. But it's then creating routines that work for you, even if it's like 2 minutes in the morning or whatever, right? And then by just creating these tiny habits, and then once this is fully integrated, maybe going to the next level. That's why, for example, also the free program that I have, I made it 22 days because this is the proven time kind of like that it takes to reprogram yourself into a new routine.
The integration period.
Yes.
The incubation period.
Yeah. Totally.
It's beautiful to see, you remind me of the aspect of being in a pause with yourself in between.
Yeah.
And that for me was a realization when I thought I understood meditation. And then it's so much more.
Let's meditate, so I'm more effective.
Yes, and then so thank you for. I think this is the most beautiful. How do you say, sharing of what you just brought for this podcast, because I felt that we went, at a specific level, sharing all the information, and I'm really grateful for our conversation. I'm really grateful for everything that you touched upon. And the last part that you brought to this conversation is extremely profound. And I love to conclude with that. So thank you so much for being here, for your time, for your energy, and for bringing your light to this table, to this room, and to my community and to me. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It's been so much fun to come on here, and I'm wishing you, such joy and success with the podcast. I mean, it's going to be amazing.
Thank you so much, Julia.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this first episode with Julia. We are so grateful that you take part on this journey, because this channel is a sanctuary for awakened souls, mentors, guides, seekers, and leaders who are ready to step into a new way of being. Together, we are creating a powerful movement of self-mastery, personal growth, and spiritual evolution. Here we don't just talk about change, we embody it. We guide a growing community toward deep self-awareness, grounded wisdom, and the courage to lead from within. This space is for those ready to realign their values, embrace transformation, and live a life that truly resonates with their soul. We are here to inspire and be inspired. And every challenge you overcome, every aligned decision you make, opens energetic doors for others to do the same. Your growth becomes a ripple that shifts generations. Even if you're just beginning, your voice matters. This is a call to rise, to lead with heart, to speak your truth, and to let go of fear and live from clarity, stability, and inner power. We believe the universe is conspiring in your favor. And the discomfort before growth is sacred. Your presence, your voice, your wisdom. Everything is an invitation to become the highest version of yourself. And your presence, your voice, and your wisdom are needed more than ever. Like this video, subscribe, comment, share, hit the bell sign so you don't miss this. And if you know somebody who needs to hear this, share this with them. And thank you for your contribution for our call to rise and lead with heart.